responsible for for citywide digital and print communications citywide. So these are our, kind of the overarching channels that we use. So our city website, our social media channels, again, the city ones, not department ones, our Horizon newsletter, which comes out 3 times a year. It's our printed publication. It goes out to about 63,000 households. Our e-newsletters. So out of my shop comes the city managers every other week e-newsletter, which is Update Sunnyvale. And then I've just been given a new assignment to take over Insights, which is our internal city staff newsletter. And then we are also the administrators for a couple of our other systems. We have our OpenGov system, which is our survey tool. And then we also are the administrators for Gov Delivery, which is the system that we use for all of our e-newsletters. And that's kind of affiliated with our website. The big bread and butter, the most voluminous part of our work is support for departments and their outreach needs. And we use all of the above mentioned channels for that work. And then I mentioned I support the mayor for the state of the city. We are responsible for writing his speech, putting all of that together, as well as the talking points for the elected officials who give out our community awards. And of course, Mike was one of our award winners at the last State of the City. So, yay, we're in great company. And then crisis communications. Never like to have a lot of that, but they come our way. So I'm heavily involved in any sort of sensitive or controversial issues. I am the PIO whenever we activate our Emergency Operations Center for any kind of emergency. And at that point, we would use X, formerly Twitter, for distributing public health or emergency communications, in addition to many other channels. I also oversee the brand, the city's brand. And so whenever it's sort of quality control on how we're using the logo. And then anytime we want to expand or enhance our brand with new logos and that kind of thing, that comes out of my shop as well. And then finally, fun fact, we also issue film permits out of my office. And so anytime anybody's going to be doing any filming on city property, they come through my office and we review what they have going on, make sure they have the appropriate insurance and coordination with anybody else in our organization. For example, they might need traffic control or public safety involvement. That goes through my shop, and then we issue a film permit. So I'll pause there. Are there any questions about anything that I've covered so far? All right, Tim. Oh, yeah. We're not San Francisco, right? So we're not a Hollywood film destination. What we get about a dozen film requests a year, and a lot of it is commercial filming for the private sector. So they'll be doing promo films or different things for their organization. That's a lot of what we get. Great question. I know, I
I
know.
also have a
We
question. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Sorry to interrupt. I couldn't find my raised hand feature. Um, so that's great to hear about the communication channels that you're responsible for. Now, I know that maybe you said this and I missed it, but there's the different departments have also communications that they communicate to the public. And does that go through your group first, or do they just publish? For example, the transportation department or division that I'm most familiar with, they come out with public facing information regularly about the projects that are going on.
Yes. Are you reading my notes? That's actually what I'm going to cover next. So it's a
Oh,
perfect segue question.
okay.
Um, and it's an important distinction because my group is out of the city manager's office. So think of us as sort of the umbrella over the organization from a comms standpoint. But then, of course, we have our departments that are busy with their work too. So most of our departments rely on us for communication support, but some departments have staff that do both their programmatic work and outreach on top of that. And then some of our departments even use consultants. And you're right, Public Works is one of them. Very often, some of our projects, like our parks projects or our transportation projects, will have the support of consultants who help out with outreach. But in general, a lot of it comes through my office for either review or input or even just developing the content and the imagery and all of that. So I want to run through our departments, and I think you'll get a better sense of how it works when I do that. Um, Historically, the city has been pretty leanly staffed in the communications function, but we have had some recent council approvals for some extra staff, and I'm going to talk about that here now. So, in the city manager's office, for most of my time with the city, and it'll be 14 years this summer, it has just been me and a webmaster. And that person, her name is Lynn. She focuses on our website, which is, a very big property and a key source of information. That's extremely lean for a city our size. We're the second largest city in the county, the seventh in the Bay Area. And so last fiscal year, the council must have taken pity on me and approved a deputy PIO, public information officer, and an additional web and communications specialist to focus on social media. So that's been fantastic. We hired both of those positions last February and April, but sadly, the deputy moved out of the area in November, and so I'm back in the hiring process. And just last night, extended an offer, and we're doing some background checks. So I'm hoping to have the new deputy on board here very, very soon. So it has been wonderful for me to go on vacation without my laptop, have somebody who can back me up, and it's great for succession planning, of course, and it's just some extra muscle on the team to really build up the capacity of what we're able to do. Um, Public safety is another area where we're seeing some expansion. Right now, the PIO function for public safety, the captains rotate through that position. So you have a sworn officer in that position responding to incidents and being on scene for media. They rely heavily on the city manager's office, myself, for support in those cases. And when Chief Pasteur got into his new role, hiring a civilian PIO was one of his big priorities. And so they are also in the hiring process. I sat on that panel actually a few weeks ago, and they're working through the background check. So that is really exciting because a lot of communications needs come out of our public safety department. And so I'm really looking forward to a close partnership between my shop and the new PIO. The captains, of course, will still be involved, but now there's going to be somebody who's a professional communications person doing the lion's share of the work. Um, ESD, Environmental Services, and the library are kind of what I would call program plus. They are departments that have programmatic staff that also have a heavy outreach component to their work. And so we still partner extensively with them. So, for example, the Earth Day that was mentioned earlier by Agnes, ESD is working with our recreation staff to put that event on, but we're supporting with some of the marketing. So it's a partnership that happens because we're sort of spread out and we need to kind of work together and collaborate on all of those things. Library stays pretty focused. The librarians run the programs and then market the programs largely through their outreach channels. They have a huge mailing list and a very engaged community around their programs. And we will help publicize those on occasion. Our recreation staff is the only, it's the division, a division within our library and recreations department. They're the only ones that have true outreach staff. They have a very small team that focuses on recreation needs. So they put out the activities guide. And they also have an events team that puts on all of our big events. So I hope you'll all mark your calendars. We're going to do a big July 4th celebration this year for the nation's 250th anniversary. We're having a Ferris wheel, 72-foot Ferris wheel in downtown. Lots of carnival games and amusement. But that shop is putting that event on, and we are closely involved. In fact, my shop is helping lead all the marketing and outreach materials and the creation for that. So again, another kind of example of a highly coordinated effort. Um, all of the other departments rely on me. So community development, public works, as was mentioned, the other divisions within the city manager's office, economic development and EAI, which is equity, access, and inclusion. And then IT, we're bringing on board a new CRM system. If you use Access Sunnyvale, we're going to be calling the new one My Sunnyvale. I'm working with IT on helping to communicate about that. Even finance, we help with, they had a new utility billing system, so I helped with that. The budget every year, HR even. We just announced our new human resources director with a press release, and even the attorney's office. I'm working with Rebecca Moon, our city attorney, on some things having to do with some litigation. So it runs the gamut. And I hope that helped answer your question, but I'll pause here if there are any questions about kind of how we're organized and structured and how we partner. Do I need to
I
turn this one off?
no,
Okay.
I have a question. When a department decides that they're going to reach out to the community, is there a formulaic approach that they need to use established by your office if they don't have staff internal as recreation does to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question too, and I'm going to talk about that next. Did you share my notes? I don't know. Like, I feel like everybody's cheating or something. Yeah, that's a fantastic question. I can get to that in a moment. Tim, did you have one?
Oh, am I working?
Okay. Yeah. You're going to hear a theme here, I think. Collaboration and teamwork makes the dream work for us. We have what we call a web team. And so the city has a content management system. It's owned by Granicus. It's a Granicus product. And that is the underlying platform that our web pages are built on. And so Lynn, the webmaster, oversees all of that. And we have assigned staff in not every department, but we kind of call our heavy user departments. And so it's a team of about 20 people in the organization. And we have a ticketing system. So if, let's say, a program or a project has to update their project page, the project manager, so to use your example, I don't know who it was on the screen that had the question about, yeah, sure, about, public works or transportation project. That project manager will say, oh, we've got a community meeting. So they'll submit a ticket. They'll be working with us already on the outreach, but they'll submit a ticket and that'll go to the web team and somebody will do the update and that'll go through a workflow and then Lynn will have the final approval. And we do hundreds and hundreds. I want to say, I think we're at 700 tickets about a year to update the city's website. So it's a little decentralized in that way. The great thing about our website is and we really, it's a point of pride for us, and I would welcome feedback on it. We don't, it's not, residents, visitors, employers or whatever. A lot of classic governments are organized that way. We organize it by topics. And so the web team members are actually cross-functional. It's not like public works people only update the public works pages. We have sub teams of those 20 people that work on each individual section of the website. And let's say somebody's on vacation, they kind of move around and cover for each other to make sure that we meet our turnaround time, which is less than 3 days. And we usually meet it well under 3 days. Does that answer your question? Okay. Okay. And okay. I'm going to get to the one that was that Agnes asked about, kind of how we run the show. Um, So how do we make outreach decisions, and how does that work in terms of this sort of formulaic approach? Um, yes and no. We sort of have this deck of tactics, right, that we leverage heavily, and when we're making outreach decisions, we look at them through a variety of lenses. So there's always sort of the urgent and unplanned that comes our way. Recently, we were involved with, obviously, sort of talking about the federal immigration enforcement. That was really in the news, and there was a lot of community concern about that. We had an apartment fire on Kirkland Drive over near Homestead and Hollenbeck. So these things, we can't plan for them. They come and we have to drop everything and deal with them. So there's that. Um, we're, of course, paying very close attention to the council agenda and priority projects. And so a lot of our comms is driven around that, sort of the regular routine of a project comes forward. There's community outreach. There might be several community meetings. It'll go to public hearing, and then it'll go to council for decision. So, there's sort of this a rhythm, if you will, around some of these projects. We meet monthly. I meet monthly with a small group of people who are mostly the managers within each department. And we do planning. I call it my comms roadmap meetings. And so I maintain a Microsoft Planner system. Every project gets a card, and we spend 30 minutes once a month running through all those cards and planning ahead for what's coming down the pike. And so that's really a key meeting for me to stay on top of everything that's going on. And then I meet with my team, of course, after those meetings, and we sort of triage and decide who's doing what. The communications planning calendar, we have one of those, and that's kind of our repository of some of those sort of every year sorts of things. So the seasonal things, when it's cold weather, when it's going to be rainy weather, when it's going to be hot weather, 4th of July, and we talk about no fireworks. It's kind of all of those things. And then there's cultural awareness days and that kind of thing. So we sort of have all of those tools and manage kind of the flow and the drivers for communication that way. We have something called a communications intake form. So when we meet with departments on a new project, there's sort of a punch list of things that we talk to them about. Why are you communicating? What's the goal of your communications? Who are you trying to reach? What's the pacing of your project? What are the connections to other projects? We need to understand kind of what the context is. Is there going to be anything controversial that we need to be aware of? Is this a newsworthy item? Do we need to have a media component? So we walk through all of that in sort of a kickoff meeting, and then build out a comms plan from there. And so, yes, it is a little bit formulaic, Agnes, in that we have our standard tactics and kind of a standard package for a typical project. But we will deviate from that if necessary. So I wrote an example down here. So for example, we did more targeted outreach related to the homelessness strategic plan. The safe parking issue was another one that came our way that we really did general awareness outreach, but then we also did very targeted outreach as well. A lot of times on the targeted stuff, our city staff will take care of that. I'm not resourced to, go out and do stakeholder meetings and table at events and all of that. So it really does come down to being a collaborative effort, kind of dividing and conquering, if you will, to get the work done. Does that answer your question? Okay. Yeah, I'll pause here. Is there another question? Charlene,
Yeah,
did I answer your question?
Yes, I think so. Thanks so much. I do have one more question about the website, because your department or group manages the city website. And it's sort of just a general question, which is there any talk about redesigning the front end of that website, not necessarily the back end, but just how the information is presented to the user? Because as I goes in, well, now I'm familiar with that website, so I know where to find stuff. But initially it was confusing because it's not always very consistent. For example, um, there's two menu levels. There's the top level menu, and then when you go to any particular page of that top menu, then you get this menu on the left side. That's not necessarily the same menu you see when you get the drop down from the top level menu. So it's like you got to hunt around sometimes. And then when you get to, for example, the home streets and property page and the transportation projects page, the transportation projects has two sections. One has expandable ones and the other is links. And that was confusing to me at first. I couldn't find stuff. So it's just the way that information is presented. I'm hoping there's a way to mostly clean that up, make it more consistent without spending a whole lot of time and money on it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So thank you for that feedback. We get um, a lot of different perspectives about the website. When we redesigned it, we did extensive focus groups. We did a survey. We asked for feedback. We did user testing. So we had actually people come into City Hall and do card sorting, and we gave them a task, for example, and said, "Hey, you need to find out this planning permit thing," and they would, kind of look at our mock-ups and work through the use case there. So we did a lot of testing, and the card sort exercise was quite amazing, actually. So we laid out a bunch of topics on the table, and people kind of organized them in ways that made sense to them from the community standpoint. So the organizational structure is based on that. But as we all know, the web is a dynamic environment. It can be changed, and we have changed it. We actually did a big redesign of it a couple of years ago. Our first big redesign was in 2017 when we rebranded the organization. But we have done some modifications since then. Um, I would encourage you to use the search, our inline search. A lot of people come, in fact, most people come to our website using external search like a Google or a Bing or an Edge.
Yeah, actually, I
And
have used the search, and
yeah,
that's another inconsistency. Like it
yeah,
doesn't find what I need, and so instead I
mm,
use Google search, which is better at finding stuff
yeah,
on the Sunnyvale website than the Sunnyvale search.
right, right. Yeah. And sometimes I'll tell you, I mentioned that we oversee the website. Um, the website is more than just the Granicus platform. A lot of what we call third-party applications plug into the website, and we don't necessarily manage those. So, for example, EnerGov is the online permitting application. That really is just plugged right into the back end of our site. And so when you have third party applications, that inline search that's on our website doesn't work. It doesn't search for that.
Yeah, I don't
And
mean to derail the
yeah,
conversation, but I mainly had the question, is there any effort to change to make the front end more usable? But it sounds like there isn't like an explicit initiative to do that at this point.
we don't have a project to do that now,
Okay,
but if we were to do it, we would do something similar to what we did in the past, which is really get, public opinion from a lot of voices and go through usability testing and make sure we were, sort of proof of concept across the board.
thanks.
But I also extend to you, if you have specific things that you're looking for and want to see improved, I welcome you to give me a call, and I'm happy to meet with you and talk through some of those things, because we want you to be able to find the information. We have made some specific improvements to the traffic area, but that is an area that we know we need to work on. Any other questions? Oh, yeah. Okay.
I've lived in Sunnyvale now for 56 years. All of that time has been on the East Channel.
Okay.
My house is abuts that. So most of my governmental actions, and I think about over the past years, is working with them. And and what they're doing.
Working with Valley Water, the water district.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because they've got their own set of rules and
Yep.
and uh, and they're also very active in uh, uh, flood protection.
Yep.
And I don't know, have they and you gotten together and to explain exactly what's happening there? I mean, I hear something. I don't know if I'm just out of the work loop.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I know there are East Channel projects underway, and we do work closely with Valley Water. That would be in our Public Works Department. The project that's active right now for East Channel is the East Channel Trail,
Yeah,
which is a 6 mile trail that's going to cut through north to south through the middle of Sunnyvale along the channel. The flood control work, I know, I feel like a few years ago there was a big project that they might have done some landscaping and flood control improvements along, but I'm not aware of anything that's active now. But it might be something that our engineers are working on, but hasn't risen to the level of community outreach. Yeah. If you give me your card, I'd be happy to, or your contact information, be happy to follow up with anything. Yeah. Yes.
Hello.
Hi.
I actually had a question about the filming process.
Oh,
So if there's a group like Livable Sunnyvale that wants to do like PSAs or talk about issues via media, does the group get just like a permit that they can continuously use, or is that like per basis, or is it only for like commercial filming on like public property and stuff?
yeah. So the film permit is for public property. So if you want to film in, one of our city parks or close down one of our roads, we'd be wanting to issue a film permit. If it's just you and a camera in a park, you don't need a film permit for that. So it's really something where it rises up to you have a crew, you might have some tents, you might have some catering, and this is something that's a little more impactful on, either the property. Like obviously we don't want filming like that to impact park users, and we definitely want to be covered in case there are damages and that kind of thing. But if it's, small scale productions like that, you don't need a film permit.
Very cool. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
I'm a little embarrassed to ask this question because it probably is already happening. I wonder, is there someplace where there's sort of a summary, sort of a down and dirty summary of what happened at city council the night before, or even the planning commission? What happened there? Just somewhere on the website where you could just say, hey, what happened? Because who wants to sit through a whole city council meeting? No insult to our council members,
Said no
but
one.
when it takes them 2.5 hours
Yeah.
to do the Silicon Valley Hopper, that's a long
Oh,
council
yeah.
meeting.
You're talking about the citywide shuttle.
Yeah, right,
Yeah,
which they
that's
all knew they were going to vote yes on in the first place.
Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
but
Yeah.
I just wonder if there's sort of what I'm asking, this kind of,
I know, a summary, like a roundup.
yeah, quick
Yeah.
summary.
It's a great idea. And it's one that I'd like to explore once I hire my second deputy BIO. We do what's coming up on council. My social media person has started to do that. So if you follow us on social media, you'll see those posts. The recap comes through the meeting minutes that are posted pretty soon after each meeting, so you can do that. But I agree, we could do a better job of doing a quick what happened, how did council vote on these issues? Absolutely. Noted.
Have you considered using AI to create the summary and also have a transcript
Yes.
and then say that the official record is the video, but that way you
Yes.
see where to look in the video. If
Yes.
you've got a summary and a transcript, then you can zero into
One-
search.
100%. Right, exactly.
Well, no, the
Yeah,
summary
no,
would be three
that's it.
sentences,
Yeah,
but
so,
then you
yeah.
can dig in.
Yeah, we are actively using AI. It is so exciting. We have something called Madison AI for the city. That is the chosen technology for our internal, the document knowledge base, I think they call it, right? Tim, you probably know. So the knowledge base is all of our RTCs and the acronyms, reports to council, um, attachments, transcripts, everything. In fact, I am doing a tour next week about for my one of the associations I belong to, Capio, and I accessed Madison AI to give me a summary of our Civic Center modernization project, which has been it was a 10-year project. And in under a minute, I had an amazing summary. And then I asked it to give me a summary of all the cost expenses, and I had an amazing summary. And then I asked it to give me a presentation outline, and it gave me an amazing presentation outline. So absolutely, we could use Madison AI to help us with that. I think it's a matter of when the documentation is loaded into the system. So that's not instantaneous. So it might take us a few days to use Madison AI to mine it for that, but it's certainly there, and our city staff are using it. It's just kind of just come online for us. So, but we're learning how to use it. Yeah, great idea. I had a couple other just quick closing things. I wanted to let you know kind of what's occupying my time. Some of the key things. Current projects right now. We're working obviously with the city council. You heard Angela mention at the top of the meeting the priority projects workshop that just happened last week. That for those of you who've been around a while, you would know that as our city study issues and budget proposals. That's what we used to call it. But the council asked us to study the study issues process and improve it, streamline it, and we did. And so this was the first time we met under this kind of new process. And as Angela mentioned, they selected 9 projects to move forward for deeper staff analysis. And the time savings there is that we used to have to do all the analysis and then bring them forward, and then the council wouldn't pick all of them. And so all of that work was sort of lost, if you will. So there's some time savings there. But we'll be working with the council and the city manager to communicate around that in the horizon that's coming to you in a matter of days. The entire centerfold spread is talking about that process, and we highlight several of the projects. So definitely check that out. The events, I mentioned 4th of July, super excited about that special event for our semi-quincentennial, I believe is the really long word, for 250th. We're also starting planning for 2 grand openings, super exciting about our branch library up in Lakewood and the community center grounds. So I hope you can attend our grand openings for that. You heard the citywide shuttle. We don't have a name for it yet, so I'm open. If you guys can think of names for the shuttle, please send them my way. But we'll be starting the branding work for that, and the goal is to launch that shuttle in September. So that'll be a very big project for us. And then we have just launched new recreation software. Our old recreation software was failing miserably. It was a horrible, horrible system. And so we have a new system online, and we're rolling it out in phases. And so the next phase will be launching the app, and that's coming in a couple of weeks. I want to say April 6th is when you'll be able to download the app. So I encourage you to check that out. I mentioned previously the new CRM, which is the new Access Sunnyvale. It'll be called My Sunnyvale. It'll have an AI chatbot associated with it. So hopefully that'll make it easier to submit requests to the city and all that kind of thing. And then we are working on digital accessibility. For those of you in the web world, you may know that we have federal DOJ requirements to make our website and documents accessible by the end of April. And so that has been a huge lift for the organization. You'll read about that in Horizon as well. We just put something called Doc Access on our website. And so now when you open up a PDF, you actually have the opportunity to toggle to an accessible version of that document. So that's really going to be helping us meet those requirements. You'll see it in the upper left corner when you open up a PDF. And then on deck, we're doing a community equity assessment. And that's really going to help us understand whether there are gaps in how we're providing service to our community. There's a survey that's being done. There's going to be a community forum later this year. So I hope you participate in that. You may already be aware of the Charter Review Committee. There's been a committee that has been working on bringing forward some changes to the charter. And anytime we have changes to the charter, those have to be brought to the voters. And so we're working through some polling right now on a handful of issues. And when we get the polling results back, that'll help the council determine whether or not to put any of those items on the November ballot. And so we will be responsible for doing any sort of outreach. Interestingly enough, about that type of outreach, and we face this with the library ballot measure, we cannot do any advocacy as a city. So after a certain time, when you get close to the election, any outreach coming out of the city has to be very neutral. And this is why a lot of communities will organize sort of a grassroots support campaign for whatever the measure is about. And so that was tough for us because we were supportive, obviously, of the library ballot measure. And you know, the outreach that we did had to be neutral. And so in this case, with the charter amendments, you'll see that same kind of philosophy. We'll be educational and very neutral. I won't be taking any kind of position on any of the charter amendments if they go forward. But that's sort of an interesting little nuance that many people don't understand. New community engagement tool and revising our intranet, which doesn't really affect you all, but it does affect us. Those are two projects that are a little bit longer down the horizon for my team, but those will be big lifts for us as well. And I'll stop there because I'm afraid that I've taken up too much of your meeting time.
No, I think you're good. I do want to ask you, because we talked about the website, and you just mentioned surveys.
Yeah.
So I go to your website or our website, there's survey. How would I participate in some of those surveys?
Could you go back to the homepage? I didn't see how you got to where you were. I was looking down. So
I was in the survey at the search
Okay.
top.
Okay.
So don't do that.
Well, that would get you results that maybe had survey as part of the page title or something like that. But this is where I was talking before about third-party applications. And so the tool that we use is a third-party application that plugs into the website. So if you were to go out and let's say Google search a survey topic, you'd probably get the result. But what you'll want to do for surveys, if you'll scroll down, we have below the pictures there, right there, you see Open City Hall. There you go. That will take you to this is the OpenGov interface that we use for all of our surveys. So any open survey that we're using this tool for will be there. And this is, you know, I mentioned the community engagement tool as a downstream project. There are some, we've had OpenGov now for, oh gosh, I want to say since about 2013, 2014, something like that. And we don't love it. But since that time, there are other platforms that have come out that really aggregate like your project page and your community engagement opportunities and that kind of thing in one place. So it's not as difficult to get the information and to participate as it is here.
Okay.
Does that help?
That did help. I understand. The other concern is, you know, if we're new citizens or even new to getting involved in the city, I want to subscribe to something about transportation.
Yep.
How do I do that?
Yeah, on the upper right side of every single web page, you'll see subscribe over. Hopefully you'll see it.
Access Sunnyvale.
Oh, okay. Maybe it's down on the footer, I think. Or maybe it's on a different page. Why don't you hold on a second.
Subscribe here.
Yeah,
at the
there you
bottom.
go.
So
There you
here
go.
I would just put, and then I will come up with
Yeah,
all sorts of places to subscribe.
and I think it's in a different location on a child page. So, yeah, if you go into,
Okay.
and that's the Gov delivery system that I was telling you about. And it's tough because you get, even as I'm talking about it, I understand.
I didn't
get
want
it.
to put you on the
I
spot, but
I
you
get
know,
the
I thought these were
frustration.
easy questions.
I really do empathize. And it's hard because there's not a one size fits all CMS or platform. You know, what you end up doing is it's sort of like the Swiss Army knife analogy, right? The Swiss Army knife is great because it's got all the tools, but it's not the little screwdriver that you need to have. It's like it works in a pinch, but it's not that, it doesn't do the job a real screwdriver does.
Gotcha.
CMS is kind of like that. You know, it does great job for the whole website and the pages, but it doesn't necessarily have all those great functionality tools for surveys and stuff like that. So we have to bring in other tools to augment the website, and that creates issues in and of itself with connectivity and findability and all of it. So it's not. I understand that it's not as elegant as it could be, and I appreciate the concern and the frustration.
Thanks. Do you write the city manager's update? I always have this fantasy of Tim sitting there typing. I thought, no, he doesn't.
You know, the update Sunnyvale. She's referring to the every other week little blast that comes out from Tim, our city manager. I that
You don't
ju-
have to answer.
No, I just started getting involved in that late last year. That was managed by somebody else in OCM before me, but when they added the public information, the deputy to my team, they were like, you can do this and you can do that and you can do this. So we took it over. How that gets developed is we have a shared document and departments contribute content to it. And then I go through that and edit and ask questions and vet it. And then in those department meetings, I was telling you about the communications roadmap meetings. That's one of the tools that we have. And we talk about, okay, that needs to go into Update Sunnyvale. And we'll look. So if your community meeting's coming up, we'll make sure that we plug it in the right Update Sunnyvale. So I'm not super in love with that newsletter. It seems a little bit random to me right now, but I haven't had the time to really turn my 100% attention to it and improve it. I am all ears if you have feedback. Anybody has feedback. I did bring cards, so I'll leave those. I welcome any of you contacting me.
And I have an idea. What about calling it a Sunnyvale jumper?
Oh, for the shuttle?
Yeah.
Sunnyvale jumper. Okay, but jumper makes me think of somebody leaping off a bridge. But I mean, I kind of I hate to go negative like that, but I don't know. We'll have to vet that one.
Yeah, I just had one quick question related to that Update Sunnyvale newsletter.
Yeah.
How do you subscribe to that?
You go onto the where Angela was showing you. All of our newsletters, our e-newsletters, are through Gov Delivery. So you can, once you put your email in there, and it's your account, you manage it. I can't subscribe you. I mean, I could, but I don't I don't want to do that. You set up, you put your email in there, and it'll take you to the page, and it's just got a long list of all the things, and we kind of have it categorized. And the Update Sunnyvale, oh, there you are. Update Sunnyvale is in that list. You can subscribe to our press releases. All the project newsletters are there. Yeah. Oh, development. Are you talking about development? We have a development map on our website, which is a really cool feature. When you're driving around and you're like, hey, what's going on over there? The map is somewhat dynamic. It's a GIS-based map, and you go in there, and it has all these little dots, and you click on the dot, and it'll pop up the information that our planning team has plugged in there, and it'll tell you the status of the project and all of that. So that's pretty cool. No, it is not. That you would have to go in and look at, yourself. And what I can do is I have a document actually with a bunch of links on it. And so what I'll do is I'll email that to Angela, and then hopefully she can get it out to the membership and you can click on that and find your way around. And like I said, definitely reach out if you have questions. I really am serious about that and love to hear from you. And if you have topics that you want us to talk about or questions about the website or concerns, happy to hear those out.
I have a question for you about the Charter Review Committee, which I served on.
Oh, thank
Spent,
you.
a year of blood, sweat, and tears
Yeah,
going through the charter and
I
coming
bet.
up with recommendations. So the city, I guess, can't take a position, but are a lot of reasoning went into that, and I was
Yeah,
wondering if that gets published anywhere, so that
yeah,
I mean, digging through all of the meeting uh, transcripts or looking at them all, that's like way too
right,
tedious. But
right.
I get we did have the summary report from the Charter Review Committee. Will that be published
Yeah.
and linked to?
Yeah,
when you-
we have a page on our website for the Charter Review Committee. It should be Connie Versailles, Deputy City Manager Connie Versailles is running that project. She's my boss. And so hopefully she's doing her job as project manager and putting in one of those web tickets and getting that added to the website. I'll check on that and make sure it's there. We did put an article on that in the upcoming Horizon, so you'll read about that. And I do want to be clear. It's not that we can't educate about it. We just have to remain neutral. We can't do any advocacy. So whenever we talk about it, it's just got to be just to the facts, ma'am, as they say. Yeah. Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
I have a couple things. For the shuttle service, I'm on VTA Citizens Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
Just a little bit of input that I've heard from one of my committee members is that each city having a different name for the shuttle services, especially for her since she is blind, makes it very difficult knowing, when have you crossed city boundaries and, oh, am I in Milpitas? Do I need to do SMART, or am I in
Yeah.
oh, am I in San Jose? Do I need to do another one? It's a mess. And
Yeah.
so sticking to an established name that's already in multiple cities is probably best for accessibility and, means that you don't have to do any work.
Right.
I would also say on the note about generative AI, um, especially having an AI chatbot in, something that you can give to constituents is, I would say at a time when AI is known for hallucination and creating false information out of nowhere,
Mm-hmm.
unless and until that possibility is zero, you are effectively willingly providing misinformation to constituents.
Mm-hmm.
That is something I don't think that's in your job description, is it? I know it's in some other people's job descriptions, but probably not yours.
Oh.
But yeah, that and the environmental concerns of generative AI, especially as we are seeing enormous amounts of water being used for data centers. I don't really think that we need to do that. Not everything needs to have its own AI chatbot.
Yeah.
Ideally, nothing would, because they don't really provide a lot of value, frankly. And as someone who's a lot of people in my life are writers or artists, and their work has been scraped without their consent to train these AI bots. Um, you know, they are never going to see compensation for that, and I don't think we should be promoting or participating in that kind of industry that is willing to steal from people, frankly.
Yeah, there's definitely multiple viewpoints on that topic. And our chief information officer has been heavily involved in selecting the tools and vetting how we use them. We have an AI policy that has been developed. And I know that there's going to be some disclaimers around the results. And so I think anytime you're using AI, especially when it's in its sort of infancy and evolving situation, it's sort of buyer beware a little bit, and you need to be careful and vet the information. So I think, the chatbot will be sourcing information from our website. But just like you use Google today, the AI capability is there. And I think we all just need to be careful about how it gets used. You mentioned the shuttle. We did talk about combining forces with SV Hopper, but there are a lot of challenges. So, we have a grant fund for that, and the city is kicking in additional money for the shuttle. But our service area is within the city of Sunnyvale. SV Hopper is a totally different system on a totally different timeline with totally different agencies, and so unfortunately, there's just as lovely as it would be to combine and have that synergy, it's just not going to work out. But that idea was explored, and I can appreciate the challenges of having multiple systems.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. I think that might be it for
Okay.
you. Thank you for being so generous with your time and
Yeah.
so eloquent. I'm always into somebody who speaks very smoothly. I'm kind of, high, low, excited, not to, stumble for words. So thank you. It was a pleasure and it was informative.
Okay. Well, thank you for that compliment. I appreciate it. And like I said, I'll leave my business cards. And I've just enjoyed the time so much and having the opportunity to chat with you and answer your questions. And don't be shy. Reach out if you think of others tonight, when you're back home. And oh, I should have asked that. Definitely do that. And I'll get back on the East Channel. And then was there something else? What, Tim, did you get something else? Okay. All right. So, and oh, yes, it was sending you the list of links. I'll get that to you. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
So thank you. Thank you. At the beginning, I forgot to ask if there were any announcements from the room. And I know Tim would like to say something. Tim or Harry.
Or Harry. And looks like we've got some other people here about Connect Bay Area. Is that what you're referring to? Harry, do you want to take this or do you want me to take this?
Thank you, Tim. Hello, everyone. My name is Harry Neal. I am here today not representing VTA, but I am representing Transbay Coalition, who is a region-wide advocacy group. We are participating in an initiative called Connect Bay Area. Connect Bay Area is a citizens initiative campaign to gather signatures to get a tax on the ballot to prevent regional transportation or regional public transportation agencies from really what it is collapsing. BART, Muni, Caltrain, and AC Transit are all looking at enormous financial deficits. Muni and BART together alone is about $750 million, just to give you some perspective. But here in Santa Clara County, we have a unique opportunity because VTA is not looking at an enormous deficit. They are looking at a much smaller one on a less urgent timeline. So we actually have the opportunity here in Santa Clara County to improve our service and potentially come up to the same level of service that other agencies enjoy, like AC Transit. What Tim and I are doing with Connect Bay Area is we are gathering signatures to get this measure on the ballot. We need to get 200,000 by June. We are hosting events to train volunteers. We are gathering signatures at local events like a farmers market or a sports game as people are coming out of the stadium. We are gathering signatures all over Santa Clara County to make sure that this can get on the ballot to save our public transportation agencies, as well as expand service here in Santa Clara County.
And a couple other notes. Let's see. This is a sales tax measure, 0.5% in 4 of the counties, 1% in San Francisco County. And something that comes up a lot when I talk to people are we've got way too many transit agencies. It's balkanization, which actually we're seeing with the shuttle also. Everyone's doing their own little thing and it all doesn't fit together. Yeah, Seamless Bay Area is backing this also because right now we're in a desperate situation. This is sort of an Armageddon kind of thing for several of these transit agencies. If we don't get this on the ballot in November and then get it to pass November, BART and Caltrain, a lot of others are really going to be hit hard. And it's like right now, Caltrain electrification, it is really now really working really well for a lot of people. Finally, I mean, I wasn't using it for a long time because it just didn't work well enough. Now it is. We need to keep it working, and eventually, we'll hopefully get these transit agencies combined or unified more. Because the Clipper system's a little bit lame, and not sometimes very lame, and it's kind of yeah. Yeah, we have a lot of issues still, but it is working pretty well or well enough for a lot of people. And if we don't have it sustained, there are a lot of people not going to be able to get work, and they'll have to go back on the roads, and it'll be a lot more expensive and a lot harder.
That is a great question, Margaret. We are doing pretty darn well here in Santa Clara County. We tend to be a less transit usage county compared to say Alameda or San Francisco, but I would say even with that in mind, we are sort of disproportionately doing well as compared to what you might expect from the amount of transit usage we have. We are not allowed to share exact numbers, but I will say things are looking good. We are trending quite positively, and I'm very proud of the progress that we're making, especially here in Santa Clara County. One of the things I wanted to add to what Tim was talking about the how well Caltrain electrification is working for a lot of people. Caltrain's ridership recovery on weekdays, because so many people who used to be working in downtown San Francisco are still working at home. On weekdays, it's about 60-ish% of pre-COVID ridership. But on weekends, it's more like 150 to 180% of pre-COVID ridership. So many more people are using it for non-commute trips. It's really showing the incredible value of public transportation as a realistic alternative to driving, which Caltrain now really is for a lot of people, being much more frequent and with the electrification a good bit faster as well. The service cuts that are on the table should we not be able to get this on the ballot and pass it in November are really devastating. BART and Caltrain are both looking at if this doesn't pass, running just one train per hour on weekdays, no service after 9 p.m., no service on weekends. Yes, really. BART and Caltrain are also both looking at closing some stations if they are not able to find new funding. They would both be forced to close stations. BART might be closing as many as 10 just in the first year. I believe would be closing 3. I think 3, and then in the second year, BART might be closing, I think, 10 or more. One of the things that really struck me when I looked at BART's so-called doomsday scenario, where if we don't pass the tax at the ballot, this is what happens. They said that if things get bad enough, they might just shut down permanently. That is terrifying, and we have to stop that. We as a region, about 1 million rides per day are done on public transit. 1 million per day. We cannot afford to lose out on that. Just looking at it from a traffic perspective, my God, can you imagine another 500, 600,000 cars on the road? I can't. But beyond that, from an equity perspective, from a climate perspective, from an accessibility perspective, there are so many people who rely on public transportation in the Bay Area, and so many more people who can't but want to. And if we cut these agencies off before they've fully recovered to where they were pre-pandemic, we will never be able to get back there. This is truly a crisis level situation, and I'm sorry for the seriousness. I'm sorry to perhaps bring the mood down, but this is unbelievably important to the future of our region and to our quality of life. This is something that we cannot pass up the opportunity to win, because we have everything to lose and so, so much to win.
Yeah, so sign the petition, and if you can or so inspired, become a petition gatherer person, and I myself or Harry can train you.
So thank you. There was hope in there with, the numbers going up, so, and people signing, so thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I'm pleased to introduce our new speaker, Jeremy Levine, who is the new executive director for Palo Alto Forward. And we met at an SV at Home Christmas party because this is what our partners we do. We connect with each other. And besides communication, we need partners that are doing the same or similar work in different cities. So Jeremy has taken over for Amy Ashton, and he's going to talk to us about what Palo Alto Forward is looking at doing for the year, what they're focusing on right now, and a little bit about zoning because it is so important. So thank you for being here. I appreciate this, and thank you for being patient.
Thanks for having me, Angela, and everyone. It's really good to be in the room with Livable Sunnyvale. A longtime fan of your work and some of the council members in Sunnyvale. Um, Before working with Palo Alto Forward, I worked with the Housing Leadership Council of San Mateo County. So I've been doing Peninsula San Mateo County housing advocacy for several years. This is my first 6 months in Palo Alto. And I'm excited to give a really quick overview of what we do and maybe just a taste of some of the zoning reforms that we're looking at. And then hopefully that will lay the groundwork for future conversations that can get a little bit more into the weeds. So, first of all, intro to Palo Alto Forward. You could say that we're like the livable Sunnyvale of Palo Alto in a lot of ways. We focus on a lot of the same housing and transportation issues, trying to create an inclusive, affordable city across multiple dimensions. Our mission is to expand housing and transportation choices in Palo Alto. That means promoting more housing of all kinds, affordable and market rate. It means supporting multi-mobility options like bike lanes, public transit, sidewalks, the whole set range of things that can create walkable and accessible communities. I think our membership looks a lot like yours. We're community members and volunteers who care about housing and transportation, in part because we have seen neighbors get priced out. We have seen children and family members have to leave or struggle with housing, in part because we care about the environment. We want people to be able to live car-free or car-light lifestyles where they can use lower carbon options and have housing options in our region that mean people don't have to drive from an hour and a half or 2 hours away just to commute for work. And we want to have equitable community, a place that is accessible to people of all income levels and backgrounds, not just people who can afford the 3.8 median $1 million home value in Palo Alto. Big picture, in order to do that, we host community events. We engage with the city's planning and try and change policies. And we champion specific housing proposals, especially the controversial ones that sometimes people struggle with, because all of these things are how we educate the community and build support among the council for the housing and transportation options that we want to see. Some of the things that we're advocating for in the next year at a very high level are housing reforms. The housing element, without getting too much into the details, is a planning document that cities update every 8 years. Sunnyvale and Palo Alto updated their housing elements in 2023, 2024, but there are a number of policies in the housing element that cities still have to implement. Reforms to things like fees that get charged on housing, this permit streamlining that makes it faster to build housing, and other sets of rules that impact how housing gets built and how affordable it is to build that housing. And then we're also working on things like ADUs, trying to make it easier to build housing in every neighborhood in Palo Alto, not just the downtown. On the other side, not just housing, but we're really focused on transportation. That includes public transit funding. Henry just talked about the public transit measure. We're all in on trying to gather signatures. We're working with students at Stanford to collect more than 3,000 signatures just in Palo Alto. We're working on transit and bike advocacy more generally. There's on San Antonio Road, which goes between Palo Alto and Mountain View. The city's doing a comprehensive plan to sort of reimagine what that street looks like to accommodate what might be as much as 2,000 new homes over the next 20 years built on that corridor. And then always supporting transportation demand management policies, sexy things like parking meters that can help with the circulation of cars. And then this is really high level, but we're always trying to think about how we can reduce barriers to homes. I talked about the fees, the permitting. There's so many layers of policy at the local level that sometimes make it hard to build. And we want to remove the barriers and provide incentives to build more housing. And the most specific form in which we do that is fixing our zoning to allow more housing across the city. And so we are mostly going to talk about fixing our zoning today. I am going to give a very abridged version of this presentation. Oh my God, somebody's at my door. 1 second while I just answer this, and then I will get into the 6-minute version of basics of housing. Sorry. Sorry about that. So just, I'm not going to be able to see everyone, but raise of hands, who here knows what zoning is? High level. Okay, almost everyone. Who here has read a zoning code? And who here has ever tried to build a project using zoning in the city of Sunnyvale or elsewhere? Okay, we have some developers in the room. That's amazing. And a lot of really knowledgeable people. So just to get everyone on the same page, zoning refers to the rules that govern the fundamental parameters of what you can build in a city. This is a slide from a presentation that was translated in Spanish, so I know it's a little messy, but this includes things like the height of a building, the amount of yard space that you need, the number of units that you can squeeze into the building, the amount of parking that you need, and then the use, whether or not you can have housing or businesses, what kind of businesses you can have, if you can have a grocery store or a bar or an auto body shop. It is the parameter that sets everything that can be built in a city. Zoning fundamentally decides where people live. This is a map of single-family zoning in Palo Alto. All the pink means that you can only build one home per lot, which means that the only people who can live in those neighborhoods are the people who can afford one home per lot, which tends to be a lot more expensive than when you have a taller building with more smaller units spreading out the cost of the land. I went and pulled up a single family zoning map of Sunnyvale because they're pretty easy to find. They're all on a website by a Berkeley think tank, the Othering and Belonging Institute. Palo Alto is 87% of Palo Alto's residential land is single family only. Sunnyvale is a little better. Only 72% of all of Sunnyvale's residential land is single family zoning. But that's still a lot of land that is set aside exclusively for single family homes. The gray land, some of that land allows housing, it allows commercial. But even in the areas that theoretically allow denser housing, there are pretty strict barriers on what you can build. And I'm gonna just cycle through an example of how these rules impact single family zoning, and then I'll have to save some of the other things for the next presentation. Single family zoning is this is just one home per lot. you can see a snippet of a code. This is from San Mateo, but the codes are very analogous across cities. This is very similar to the rules that Sunnyvale has in its own neighborhoods. There are the same yard rules, setbacks, a thing called a daylight plane that governs how much light needs to be between the top of the roof and the next lot. There are things like minimum lot sizes. I want to illustrate exactly how these rules work because they really determine what you can build. So pretend you have a single family lot, and I'm going to show you a single family lot that's in the middle of two lots and then a corner lot so you can see. Um, First of all, you have the setbacks. Can everyone see the little animation between the first and the second? You have the space between the side of the lot and the interior of the edge of the building. The setbacks in San Mateo on the center lot are a little less big than the setbacks on the corner lot. Um, the corner lot has a little less space because of how the city has designed its rules. So already you can't use the full amount of land that you have in order to build housing. This is on a 6,000 square foot lot. So probably pretty close, maybe slightly smaller than the average lot in Sunnyvale. Next, you have a daylight plane. This is like the theoretical box surrounding where you can build a house. Like this is not the house itself. This is the parameters in which you are able to build. So even if you have a height limit that might go up to, in this case, 32 feet, most of the building cannot be 32 feet high because you need to have enough space for the sun to go shine over one side. Then you have the garage parking. In the center lot, you can put the garage it has to be street facing. It's a little easier on the corner lot. You can put the garage on the back of the lot from the main street that it's facing. And then you have the house, which has to comply with something called a floor area ratio, which is the ratio between the square feet of the lot and the square feet of the structure. In most residential zones in San Mateo, the floor area ratio is 0.4, which means that if you have a 6,000 square foot lot, your house can be no more than 2,400 square feet. So that means that you can have a one-story house that is about 2,400 square feet, or you can have a two-story house where each floor is 1,200 square feet, and that is excluding the garage. So you can see how the different rules constrain the size of the structure that you can build. And then I'm just going to leave you with a teaser because we're almost at 8 o'clock. There are similar rules for the R3 multifamily housing, which Sunnyvale has a pretty similar zone, similar sets of cool animations that I'll go through. Um, I'll just say zoning alone does not solve housing issues. Providing zoning that makes it easier to build is a prerequisite to having enough housing, but cities also need to address other constraints like fees. Sunnyvale has one of the highest parks fees in the Bay Area, charging more than $70,000 per unit of multifamily housing in fees. Parks are important, but I think we have to ask what is the trade-off between housing and this cost? This is just one of several fees that a multifamily unit might have to pay. This is increasing the cost of building an apartment in Sunnyvale by, in some cases, more than 15 or 20%. So that is a really high source of cost. There are things like the permit process, which slows down development, building standards, that can make it hard to fit buildings on smaller lots. All kinds of housing are important. A city needs to have a range of housing types. So market rate housing is part of a solution, but so is affordable housing or low income housing. Again, I'm going to kind of have to give you a teaser to just be mindful of time, but there are three main ingredients for low income housing: land, money, and political will. the nature of land really is, does it have zoning that means that it is legal to build multifamily housing? And uh, is it low enough cost, often owned by a city, that a developer can afford to provide the subsidy? Money is often funding. Developers have to cobble together funding from a range of sources. And then political will is, will the council members approve the housing development quickly and expediently? I believe Sunnyvale recently had a discussion about an affordable housing development where your council shaved off a floor from the top of an affordable housing project. Uh, Sunnyvale's council has come a long way in recent years, but that is making it harder to build that project and means that it's less likely, even if the council approves the project, that it will be competitive for funding and able to be built at the end of the day. So I'm just jumping through these slides. There are a number of state laws that have changed these rules and made it easier to build housing of all kinds. I'd love to talk about it more another day, but I just want to end on a note that I'd love to work together, and Palo Alto Forward would love to collaborate with Livable Sunnyvale. You're a really cool group. The presentation that you hosted earlier was really impressive. The fact that you're organizing meetings like this so frequently is amazing, and that so many people showed up to support housing. There are things that we can work on together, like the regional transit measure. That was already in my slides before I even showed up because it's such an important opportunity. There are regional campaign things like the Stanford General Use Permit, which is a county decision to let Stanford build more housing and potentially let Stanford build housing on land it owns throughout Santa Clara County. And if you want to scan this QR code, you can sign up for our newsletter to stay up to date on all the sorts of fun things that Palo Alto Forward is hosting and planning and working on. Even if you don't live in Palo Alto, we'd love to stay in touch. So thanks, Angela, for having me. I want to be mindful of everyone's time. So if anyone has questions, I'm happy to dig into it. But yeah, that's what I got for today.
Thank you, Jeremy. I apologize that it was a little the other one was a little bit long. Thank you very much. We do partner and it's been helpful. I'm curious about the Stanford general use plan. That is intriguing and we will be in touch. I guess I'm really just stunned that 72% of land in Sunnyvale is single family. Did anybody know it was that high in the room?
Residential land specifically. So there's some commercial land, but yeah, 72% of residential land in Sunnyvale.
Oh, Cupertino might. Oh, took it.
No, yeah, I just had a question. Our city had these not called study issues anymore. I can't remember.
Priority project.
Priority projects. There actually was one to basically revisit the entire general plan. Did that one pass? I haven't watched the thing yet. Okay. Yeah, it did not actually.
I think it's me that's got a echo.
How much of this percentage of land how much you have to use in all those rules?
I don't think it's.
How much of that is controlled by the state of California?
So the sound is a little funky, but the question sounded to be like, of the zoning, how much of that is controlled by the state?
Yeah.
Is that the right question?
Yes.
Okay. So cities have most zoning remains controlled by cities. The state has preempted zoning in a handful of areas or in a handful of ways that allow more housing. So within the half mile of Sunnyvale Caltrain, the state has promoted denser housing than the city has allowed on its own. But the city still has some control over how it influences that state mandate. It can rejigger some of the zoning changes. And most of Sunnyvale is not within a half mile of the Caltrain stop. And so the city still, by and large, controls the zoning on the rest of its land. The state has incentives for the city to plan for more housing. So some people may have heard of the housing element. The housing element, like I mentioned in my presentation, is sort of like the constitution for housing planning in Palo Alto. And the state of California has uh, incentives for cities to plan for more housing through the housing element. But the way that the city plans for more housing and the specific rules within the zoning code remain, I would say, 95% a local decision and something that local groups like Livable Sunnyvale can have a really big impact over.
Yeah, there's a lot there to it. I don't know why my mic.
Somebody has a microphone on.
I didn't think it was me, but maybe it is me.
Maybe it's on your laptop.
Well, now you're muted, so I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Okay, Jeremy, so thank you. I'm sorry for this. I do have, there's a lot for zoning and we'll talk more and hopefully come back in this room sometime. I have one question because you said you were a poet. Who's your favorite poet or who you like in these days?
Oh man, when did I say I was a poet? An amateur at best. I'll say I'm a longtime fan of
Write
Allen
good poems.
Ginsberg.
That's on your LinkedIn.
Yeah, it probably is. I'm a fan of the Beats and especially Allen Ginsberg. So yeah, I'm out of the loop on modern poetry, honestly.
Very good. Okay, go eat dinner. Thank you very much
Yeah,
for being here tonight.
yeah. Thanks for having
His
me. Looking
newsletter
forward to
is
talking
really
with you all
good.
more.
Your newsletter is quite good. I highly recommend because you guys do a lot of activities. You have a lot of stuff going on. So we are definitely going to partner. So yes, thank you. And yes, have a good night. So if you want to scan that. The other thing I have is just to share. These are the letters that we wrote this in the past couple of months, or not couple of months, a month or two, mostly on the council priority project, an application for True America's 100% affordable housing on 220 Humboldt. And then we wrote a letter in support of Mid-Penn, that project on 295 South Matilda. So we were kind of busy. Yes. So that's all I have for tonight. Does anybody else have any other business or anything, other questions or announcements? Going once, twice, 3 times? Thank you very much for being here tonight. I appreciate it. See you next month. Bye.